This topic talks about two issues: the nature of human rights and how new norms evolve, which depict the complex nature of international law of human rights. We will also highlight that any articulation of an international law of human rights has to contend with contention and confusion over the meaning of the term human rights. Now we will talk about the contested nature of human rights and the debate over the supposedly universal nature of human rights. The universality of human rights will be discussed in regards to human rights, culture, and religion. A useful starting point for a discussion on the contested nature of rights is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. In its preamble, it notes recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family did the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are responsible for their actions towards others and should act in the spirit of brotherhood. These provisions make it clear that all human beings are considered to be born free and equal. Alongside their inherent dignity, this forms the principle of belief, which is the foundation of UDHR. The United States Declaration of Independence, as adopted by the USA in 1776, asserts, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." The French Declaration of the Rights of Man, adopted in 1789 after the French Revolution, similarly asserts in Article 1, "Men are born free and equal in rights." And then in Article 4, "The exercise of the natural rights of each man has no limits except those which assure to the other members of the society the same rights. Therefore, the rights apparently extend to all by virtue of their being human, although in some cases the reference is to men only." The UDHR is more inclusive than the US and French declarations as it extends to all human beings. It is understood that if we are talking about human rights, we are eventually talking about rights that belong to all so long as they are considered to be human. Being human is the reason for rights to exist, as that is their source. Human rights extend to all regardless of whether an individual is considered, for example, a criminal or a terrorist. These are the rights that cannot be forfeited or denounced. In human rights language, they are inalienable. Although human rights extend to all, this does not mean that everyone benefits from them equally. The above three declarations state that all, in two cases men only, are born or created equal, which implies that they are not equal in reality, but as well as all are born, they are entitled to the same rights. This raises several questions. On what basis are these rights enjoyed? And second, who enjoys them? In other words, who is human? A biological definition does explain who is human, but it only gets you so far. On what basis should only humans enjoy such rights? There are other highly intelligent and sentient animals that exist, and if humans are to enjoy the rights on the basis of, for example, their intelligence, ability to feel emotions, and empathize, to communicate, and to create elaborate and complex social structures, then actually great apes, among others, should also be entitled to certain basic rights. So the real question is, why humans? Some theorists have argued this, but there is absolutely no consensus that these rights should be extended to other intelligent sentient beings. However, among humans, at least an agreement that human beings, or at least some of them, should enjoy rights. This distinction between humans is due to the fact that societies are rarely organized on the basis of a member being human, but rather on distinctions within societies, be it race, religion, gender, caste, and so forth. There cannot be a scientific statement of basic human nature, as it depends on qualities that are not suitable for scientific measurement, faith or morality for instance, although science can provide a definition of humanity and hence a ground for a theory of human rights. However, societies have not always been organized around notions of human dignity. Historical or cross-cultural examples show that societies organize themselves around a class or grouping of inferiors who are deprived of the privileges enjoyed by others. If we look at the above three declarations, it is clear that all believe in the inherent or natural quality of men. Inherent dignity in UDHR, all men are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, US Declaration, and the exercise of the natural rights of each man, French Declaration. How do we verify that man is entitled to these rights? Is it verifiable? Indeed, if we believe we have a Creator and are all God's creatures, why is only man endowed with rights and why not women or other animals? Philosophical accounts of human rights, be they religious, moral, or other, adopt such a broad range of approaches that their diversity militates against any detailed consensus, but would perhaps stress that the nature of the human being is related to language, the ability to reason, and rational action. For example, when the UDHR was adopted, the Chinese representative Peng Chang was asked on what basis there had been an agreement on the rights in question. His answer was in essence that while all delegates could agree on the rights in question, they could not agree on what basis they should be identified. We could suggest that a universal meaning can be given to human because as far as the law is concerned, the universality of human rights is founded on the UDHR and the treaties that have been subsequently adopted. In the English language, right has two senses. One is moral and the other is political or legal. In the moral sense, right refers to what it is right to do from a moral perspective. The second sense of the word refers to a relationship between right and duty or obligation in the context of law. In the second sense, the meaning of right is stronger than in the former, in that a right holder can compel a duty bearer to honor that right by calling on the court to compel respect for the right. The paramount nature of human rights is either recognized by domestic law or it is not. For example, you cannot speak of legally enforceable human rights in English law as Parliament is sovereign and could legislate against human rights. Human rights are not necessarily enforceable or fundamental. Unless a positive legal source states that they are fundamental, human rights fall short of legal claims and can perhaps be thought of as political claims about the desirability of a certain state of affairs. In this sense, human rights relate to a moral standard and are related to claims about political legitimacy. Today, states demonize each other on the basis of human rights in global politics. In the past, states demonize each other on the basis of faith, be it intra-faith, example Catholic or Protestant, or one faith against the other, for example Islam versus Christianity. During the Cold War, it became ideological, communist or socialist on one hand, and free world, that is capitalist, on the other. Today, one can see human rights violations as the basis of, for example, US or EU objection to the political situation in China and Zimbabwe. Thus, human rights have become a moral yardstick and are used selectively. States will use human rights violation to highlight the shortcomings of their adversaries, but rarely in public of their allies. Thus, states have over time politicized human rights. Therefore, there is a clear distinction between the fundamental legal nature of human rights and the political nature of human rights in international law. The extent to which a human right is binding is the extent to which it is internationally recognized and legally enforceable. Although some rights may indeed be both recognized and enforceable by a court, others may not be enforced by a court.